about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
Back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dali, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So one of your questions I got yesterday was, what was it like dealing with Governor Hochul, Governor DeSantis, dealing with the various governors when I was putting together the National Blood Donation Week? And the listener was asking about, political leanings and who seemed to be more shall we say, helpful? Was it the red states? Was it the blue states? And interestingly, and this is kind of why I do the National Blood Donation Week, it's a pretty split. And fortunately, with the exception of Governor Newsom, most governors have always been supportive. Being devil's advocate or in Governor Newsom's defense, it could be his staff is not telling him about it. I don't get to directly talk to most of the governors. Usually it's through the staff. And I submit a proclamation request, explain to them what it's for. And, Democratic governors, Republican governors, DeSantis has been supportive ever since he got into office. Governor Polis in Colorado has always been supportive. Governor Pritzker in Illinois. And so, because blood donation should not be a political issue, it's a health issue. I think a lot of the governors actually like it because it's an easy decision. They don't have to necessarily, start getting bad media attention because they are, supporting something that one of the political parties decided to hijack and say, well, if you support this, that means you're a Democrat or you're Republican and so it's been very good. I think what happens with California, because they've only been a part of the campaign once in its 9 years, was when I first tried to get California involved, they said that they don't have, they can only do a proclamation if it comes from a government agency. And when I explained to them, well, blood donation is not from a government agency. We have tons of, you got San Diego Blood Center and American Red Cross and Vitalant, and you don't necessarily have, that per se. You just didn't get far. And so, and I think it was with Jerry Brown, we tried to start this. So, even though I keep reaching out to, Newsom, and no answer, it could just be they just don't have that system in place. But I got to tell you, it's really nice to see Democrats and Republicans put politics aside and try to help raise blood, and doing a proclamation, a daily or a blood donation day, a Nevada blood donation day by Lombardo, a Colorado blood donation day by Polis, Florida blood donation day by DeSantis, and we got 44 governors to proclaim blood donation days. I mean, it was amazing. Governor Walz also in Minnesota, we got his yesterday. It's fantastic. It showed that they, and some people say, but if they don't give it to you to the last minute, can you use it? Again, showing that a governor proclaimed this shows that it reminds people that this is important to do. We need to save lives. And even if you don't donate blood, today or during National Blood Donation Week, which ends on the 7th, year round, we need blood. So it all works. It's all fine. It's good. What I did find interesting, because people are asking me about the politics of this is something I do find fascinating. When the media talks about this, the local media outlets will cover it. They think this is very newsworthy and they're excited about it. Yet national media ignores it. Now, I'm not offended by that. But when we do the, press releases, we talk about how the governors are uniting, how the right and the left, Republicans, Democrat governors, all are proclaiming the same day, Blood Donation Day. This really, shows an amazing, show of support for blood banks, for blood donation and what our hospitals need. But interestingly, the media doesn't want to cover camaraderie. I found that fascinating. And this has been going on for years. The local media, boy, I mean, you see it all over the place. But because I'm like, this is kind of cool. You got both Republicans and Democrats uniting. You would think MSNBC, CNN, Fox News. No. Now, yeah, it could be, they have other things to cover every year, but it's not a sexy headline when you have, both sides work together. And I didn't really want to, identify it as that, but somebody else told me, they go, look, if you have something anti-Trump, they're going to cover it. If you have something they're going to cover it. But if you have, look, we can work together. We don't have to be so divided and so, politicized and polarized. We don't have to. Look, we could get stuff done. Not a sexy topic. And I find that fascinating because you get the same response from people going, okay, this is pretty cool. Now, maybe we don't have to always be political. You can have people stand side by side and say, we're going to work together. But no, the mainstream media really wants the divide. And I find that very troubling. Look, I don't need, CNN or MSNBC. My feelings aren't hurt if they don't want to, talk about it. But it just kind of shows, really? So it has to be something that is, anti one side or the other. It's frustrating to me because I really want politics to become less important. I mean, I remember growing up, they say never talk about politics or religion because it could always start fights. And I get it, but politics is always a very passionate topic. Same thing with religion. I get that. But I love talking about religion. I love talking about politics. And I love still being friends with whoever I'm talking to. But no, that's not where society's going now. It's if you're not with us, you're against us, and you're an enemy. And we're seeing families get torn apart. I think it's ridiculous. Let's save some lives, donate blood this week, or sign up and host a drive. 1-877-DOC-DALI.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Let's face it, guys, we're living in times where the truth is becoming more suppressed and censorship is increasing at an alarming rate, especially on social media platforms. It's Clyde, and I want to tell you about a safe and secure digital playground we put together just for you. It's Aftermath.media. You get access to thousands of Ground Zero archives and podcasts, along with our private social media groups with your basic membership starting at only $7 a month. Each subscription includes tech support, access to the RSS feeds, along with our own chat room and Telegram channel. In addition, the premium membership includes research study groups, webinars, a document and movie library, a live video stream of Ground Zero, a monthly Zoom chat with me, and other bonus content. Be sure to check out our yearly specials as well. Sign up today while you're thinking about it. Sign up at Aftermath.media. Again, that's Aftermath.media.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube. Click like and subscribe. So we're all in a pretty happy mood. Well, I know I am, because it's football season. Football season officially started. Kicked off by the Cowboys-Eagles game, and it was not without its drama. Jalen Carter of the Eagles, for some reason, walks over to Dak Prescott. They share some words, and then he spits on him. He gets ejected at the start of the game. Seeing Jalen Carter ejected was crucial to the Eagles defense, meant the Cowboys had a chance. Cowboys scored. Cowboys were on a run. They actually had some great momentum until there was lightning storm. And I knew as soon as they had to go back into the locker rooms, this was going to, the Eagles are going to rest up and be able to, come back and just keep their, in fact, there was hardly any scores after that. Ended 24-20 Eagles. And remember, the Eagles are the national championship. They call them world championship because of the Super Bowl. And so we were expected. They were slated to win and favored to win. But I don't understand why players will do that. Sometimes people are you hear that where, people will say I'm my own worst enemy. In terms of, much of my failures are because I screw up and I make, dumb decisions. And so, I am sure he got a talking to by coach for what, transpired with that. But, it's interesting. We do, I guess, really screw ourselves up sometimes. Now, I'm sure Jalen Carter's, career is still fantastic. He's going to be fine. But sometimes we just lose control. And we do things that shouldn't be done. Sometimes we say things that shouldn't be said. I told you, I'm kind of going through some issues with my family. And I've kept things to myself. And they continue to do what they do. And so I told them. I decided not to keep to myself. And I don't regret it. Now, I don't, I know you can't unsay things, but now if you could only so much, kind of kid glove, and you finally have to say, look, this is why, I'm mad. Took advantage, not happening anymore. No. The relationship is going to deteriorate even faster if I don't say something. And so I think we're going to be on the mend. I'm actually really glad I did that. But it's funny because when I did say it, I felt like I asked myself, was I in control? And when you're in the heat of things and when you're mad about something, you want to not stop and think about it. I love being impulsive. I'm not very impulsive. I'm not a big risk taker. But a lot of my instincts and my impulsivities have been right on the money. And I've been kind of fortunate. Now, I don't want to jinx myself, and I don't want, to sadly, start becoming more impulsive and doing things I shouldn't. But I got to tell you, decisions I have made time and time again have been right. Just like, my boys decide to summit a mountain over the holiday weekend. And I tell hubby, you know what? Let's go meet them up the mountain halfway. He's like, what are you talking about? We don't need to do that. We'll just bring some water and meet them at the base. I go, no, we're going up the mountain. This is just something I think we need to do. And thank God I did, because one had severe acute altitude sickness and the other one was having major orthopedic issues and was having trouble walking down the mountain. And so it was a bad scene. They were running out of water. And so my instinct has proven me right time and time again. But that's not to say, have I lost my cool? And I've like to think haven't done it as much as I could have, but yeah, I'm sure I have. I think I've said things to my husband that probably wasn't the nicest. I know I've said things to the kids. I know I've whacked them a couple times when they got me mad. So what's the best way to proceed? Because I'm watching these people on airplanes. Like, I think there was this woman who got drunk and starts hitting people. And, you see people just lose it. You see people get mad and then they get caught on video and we watch them and the media calls them Karens and all that. But, we're animals at our core. We are not designed to sit with a suit and tie and our hands folded nicely going, that seems problematic. I think we need to stop and discuss this. That's not how we are designed. Okay, our DNA is to react. Our DNA is to fight, is to compete. We're animals, to bite, to attack, to recoil. We're animals. And so I keep seeing this with kids. I see this with adults where if they don't get to blow off steam, we accuse them of having anger issues. Well, you shouldn't have steam. This shouldn't be making you mad. Well, sometimes it's a symptom of something else. And so when kids, my kids were kind of getting bullied, and one kid pulled my other son up by his hair in kindergarten. And Corey's like, my husband was like, you should have clocked him. And I'm like, well, he'll get in trouble. He'll get kicked out of school. He'll get out of, things used to be addressed, right? On the schoolyard or, behind the school and I don't want kids getting beat up and I don't want kids fighting, but are we doing something wrong? Not letting kids have this outlet. Now, this is why I think sports are so important. If you are engaged in sports, you can have an outlet. You could hit that ball. You could throw that ball. You could grab that flag, because I don't think they play tackle football. You could punch that volleyball. And it does allow you to act more like, the animal we are, that we're designed to be. But you also have to learn how to control it. And you have to learn that there's a time and place. I noticed with my kids, the temper tantrum would last longer if I tried to subdue it and quell it. So instead, if they started a temper tantrum at a store or a restaurant, I would stop what I was doing. I'd take them to the car, put either the air conditioning on or open the windows. I'm like, you want to yell and scream? Go. I'll stand out here. Have at it. And it really wouldn't last that long. But they got it out. And I'm like, anything else? Are you ready to go back in and not be doing this? And I was like, gosh, I could have been doing this whole time. And I noticed this with my husband too. He gets frustrated about something. I'm like, do you want to talk about it? No. Okay. Well, if let's validate why you're frustrated. You don't have to talk about it, but I'm not going to quell it. I'm not going to. If you're frustrated about something, air that frustration. It's probably warranted. Now, I frustrate you. Life frustrates you. That's fine. You don't have to hold it in. No, but deal with it. And when you're ready, I'm here to move on. And so I don't see that taught. I don't see that utilized. And it's all, don't cuss, don't this, don't, sit nicely, tell your teacher, the teacher will handle it. What if the teacher doesn't handle it? I mean, some of the kids in school, I went to 12 schools, some of these kids did some mean things to me. What if I don't think the teacher appropriately handled it? I'm going to be very frustrated, especially when the kids come back and do it worse because I told the teacher. We, as kids, you try to navigate life. You try to figure out what you have to do and what is the best way forward. And I remember arguing with my husband, my kids don't tell the kids to hit. He goes, but one hit, they won't be bullied. Let them hit the kid once. And I'm like, but we can't because we'll get in trouble. The kid could get suspended. They can't. And we were going back and forth. I even talked about that on air. But We need a better way of dealing with our emotions. We need a better way of dealing with anger. And we also have to understand it's all right to be angry. Absolutely, it's all right to be angry. If you're mad about some of the things, you could yell, you could scream, you could just don't hurt other people. And don't hurt yourself. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Lisa Wolf here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you. And be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So Maricela wrote me yesterday after our Ovi Mogilini guest talking about fantasy football, saying, can you tell us a little bit more about what fantasy football is? She says she can't ask her husband because he'll mansplain. I love the mansplaining accusation. I think that's funny. I don't do that to my husband because I want him to tell me something. No, but I notice that when I do ask him to teach me something, oh boy, does he like it? And he takes that deep breath and he goes, okay. And I'm like, oh, you could teach me. That's fine. I like that. So I don't mind the whole mansplaining thing. But fantasy football, really quickly, is I'll give you a quick rundown because I wrote a book with Paul Kalikas Jr. on this, and it's fun. Fantasy football, millions of people are a part of it. There's also fantasy baseball, fantasy basketball, fantasy hockey. It's brilliant because it allows you to have some skin in the game. And so fantasy football week is basically the time between when preseason ends and the football season starts. Now, the football season starts, so most people have their teams done. And I understand there were some last minute picks and trades and stuff being done yesterday. But Paul says the ideal time to draft and create your team's league is right before the regular season in case of injuries occurring during the preseason. So you could set up your fantasy football team, and pick which players you want on your fantasy team anytime, but you want to wait until after preseason in case any of them hurt themselves. And some of the starters still did play during preseason. Also, then you have your final roster cuts, and so when you have your 53-man roster deadline, whatever, you got to know what those are. But it could be a lot more simple than that because we have a lot of programs out there that help you pick your team. So fantasy football is where we watch regular football. You don't have to watch a football game. You just go online the next day and see that the Eagles beat the Cowboys 24-20, which is still pretty good for the Cowboys, considering they were up against the Eagles. But basically, fantasy football is with all these troves of numbers and stats, there are multiple sub-competitions that now can happen. So the definition of a fantasy sport is the creation and execution of your own personal team with real players whose performance will award you or cost you points and affect your score. So you don't have conversations with Dak Prescott or anything like that, right? Or Patrick Mahomes. But what they do, if they are on your team, affects your scores. Again, you could do this with any sport. So you comprise your team, you make your team, the players you choose. Again, they have to be available because there's a draft, between you and who you choose to do this with your buddies or family or colleagues, etc. And then depending on your wide receiver, your running back, or your quarterback, you get points for yardage. You'll lose points for yardage lost. And the rules, there's so many different rules, and you could make it any way you want to. And so somebody could say, Daliah, I am so busy. Why would I play this? Why? Well, it's fun. I like it. It's fun. Because, to me, football season, and I know people are saying we're making sports a lot bigger than they are. I don't mind that, because politics is now more in our lives than it needs to be. And I really want the escape. So I don't care that football season now. I mean, we waited, how many months? 8, 9 months? Finally 7 months. 7 months for finally football to start after Super Bowl. And I just couldn't wait. But if you play, there's one, you can make money. Two, there's a lot of camaraderie. Because for those of you that don't like to talk to your families, if you are doing a fantasy football team with your family, it's a reason to get the family together. Same thing with your colleagues. Having your fantasy football team and all that, it allows a different layer of friendship and bonding. So I think it's great. But also, it's, we watch the sport, and I've had friends that go, look, I just can't watch people making multiple millions of dollars, and I'm just sitting there at home, not making that money, giving them my time. I get that. So it allows you to kind of have some skin in the game. So if a player is successful, if that helps you, okay, now that's pretty cool. So, we spend a lot of money on sports, whether it's our tickets, our jersey, our gear, our bets. We're spending money. Why not, get a little bit out of it? So we get a piece of the pie. So your fantasy football season now runs during the regular football season, usually the 14 weeks. And sometimes you can, depending on your own fantasy league, extend it into the postseason. Now, sometimes whoever has their top team, they could kind of compete with each other, postseason, whatever they want, or it could end. And knowing the rules help, but you don't have to be an expert. There's a lot of people that do fantasy football very new. And what I like about fantasy football is that it teaches you onsides, offsides. You understand the penalties more. You understand the players and what they're supposed to do. And so it's a great way. It's a crash course on football. Now, I did write a book with Paul Kalikas on football basics for those of you that want to brush up on it, and fantasy football. I'll repost that on Twitter and Facebook. But, you don't have to spend money if you don't want to. You could just have your own league. You can, you could get bragging rights. I know some of my friends' families, they, have a trophy or a gift. There's something that everybody's going to get, or maybe they all throw a couple bucks into a pot, and then whoever ends up winning gets that. So there's a whole variety of ways you could do it. I usually recommend an 8 to 12 person league. If it's smaller, that's okay. If it's larger, it starts to get cumbersome. But I think an 8 to 12 person, league is fine. And then you have these mock drafts. We're already past the point of that, but that's where you simulate these drafts before the real draft. Now, I know, people say, the NFL is probably looking at us like we're crazy. Oh, no. They take some of what you and I do seriously. And so our own drafts, looking at what fans want sometimes help them go, I didn't see this. So they do look at, what our choices are. But the mock drafts in professional sports done by fans, they practice, see if the draft picks end up being the ones that their team clubs choose, and that they end up in their mock draft choosing players that match what the actual team clubs do. It's kind of a testament to the fans' expertise, instinct, drafting skill. So, my quick tips, one, do your research. And it's okay if you're a novice. Let people know you're a novice. Don't have to put any money down. Just have fun. Learn the game, the players, the scoring, the various platforms you could join or play fantasy football. There's a lot of online. If you don't have somebody that wants to add all the yardage and do the stats themselves, online does it now. And, work with people, do it with people that you like. If you don't like your coworkers, it's not going to make you like them more. I mean, if you really can't stand your colleagues, then I wouldn't do it. But if you do, enjoy being around certain family members, certain colleagues, it's great. But try not to have anybody with conflicting personalities. Make sure they also have good sportsmanship. Because if they start to lose, if they're going to be jerks to you, you really don't want to be around them. Don't forget to engage in a mock draft before the real one. I know now the time's got to pass, but it helps you prepare. And then, wait until all the injuries have kind of been done so you definitely don't want to have somebody on your team who, just hurt their leg or hurt their ankle or have a groin strain. But, for those of you interested in it, there is a book on Amazon called Fantasy Football Pocket Guide for Beginners. It's cool. And I understand it does take time. Not a lot of us have time, but once you get it going, it's really, really cool. And each week, even if you don't have time to watch football, you're like, wow, let's look at the stats. And I just love numbers. And I love the idea of one thing turning around and providing so many other opportunities. That's it, like, with a pint of blood. I tell you guys to donate a pint of blood because so many components of it can help people. That's what I look at with fantasy football. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Don't go away.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99-799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99-799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99-799. Again, FREE to 99-799.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did. And just maybe, someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
Back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So this was interesting. The Department of War will, the name looks like is going to come back after it was changed to Pentagon, and it'll return to the Department of War under President Trump and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. And this is an interesting move. President Donald Trump is going to be signing an executive order today to return the Department of Defense to the Department of War, which would also include the Pentagon name. Both Trump and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth have recently indicated that they want to change the name of the agency. It is one of several initiatives that the Trump administration wants to do as part of its, show of military strength. And the Department of Defense, the DOD, it's interesting. I think that originated after World War II, and just like the Israeli Defense Force, and the idea of defense was, especially after wartime, people thought that was all right. Well, that was probably more, maybe nicer. Nobody wants to talk about war. War was a bad word, but the executive order calls for using the Department of War as a secondary title, along with phrases Secretary of War for Pete Hegseth, so his title can change. According to Fox News, the order also instructs Hegseth to propose both legislative and executive actions to make the name permanently the U.S. Department of War. Now, it will require modifications to public-facing websites, office signage at the Pentagon, including renaming the Public Affairs Briefing Room the Pentagon War Annex. Other longer-term projects are also in the works. But the Pentagon will still be the Pentagon, still has the shape, etc. But it is under the Department of War. And Pete Hegseth, who Trump has already referred to on occasion as the Secretary of War, also expressed similar sentiments. So, the president said Pete Hegseth said we won World War I, we won World War II, not with the Department of Defense, but with the War Department, with the Department of War. So they're going to revert back to that. And as the president said, we're not just defense, we're offense. We've reestablished at the department the warrior ethos. We want warriors, folks that understand how to act lethality on the enemy. We don't want endless contingencies and just plain defense. We think words and names and titles matter, so we're working with the White House and the president on its standby. Now, according to Fox News, the U.S. employed the Department of War title for its military agency until 1949, when it was renamed the Department of Defense in accordance with a series of massive reforms included in the National Security Act of 1947. Now, I don't know if Congress is going to need to step in. I think they do have to for final approval. I'm kind of mixed on that because the Israeli Defense Force is about defense. Okay, they don't, they're not, publicly, shall we say, embraced to go and, address issues in other parts of the world and show their military might. Their job is to make sure that, people don't attack them. And if they do have to do things proactively for defense, the IDF knows how to do that. But the Israeli Defense Force reminds people that they are always in a state of defending. And that's what they do. And they defend their constituents. They defend their country. And it's of defense. In terms of America, though, true, the underlying cause of any sort of, peace through strength, is to ensure that there's peace and that we have a good defense. But the Department of War has a different ring to it. And, one thing about Trump, and again, I don't know exactly how excited I am about this, but I don't think I'm against it. I just haven't really made an opinion on the matter. But one thing that Trump is doing, which is very different from previous presidents, is, you really don't want to mess with us. I understand here's China and North Korea and Russia showing their display of military might. And, Trump is badass, but he's not going to be in, the White House, again, after this term. And so how does he extend that sort of show of strength? We have the Gulf, surrounded by America. Mexico has the name of it. Why not call it the Gulf of America? Why not look at other areas where we can, show that, we have the ability to protect others and the ability to protect ourselves. And so, I don't know, it's definitely interesting recalling it the Department of War. I know Trump, dislikes a lot of the woke changes that the previous administration did, but this was a change that happened back in 49. And it'll be interesting to see. But we are, though, the one thing that I think we all could agree upon is Trump has a much different sort of air about him that other countries are seeing. And I think most everybody else, across the globe are like, okay, we don't want to screw around with Trump. We do not want to mess with him. Now, what's concerning is what happens in the midterms. If Trump loses the House and the Senate, or one of the others, and the moves he wants to make can't be done, like we saw with his first term, if his feathers get, clipped, wings get clipped, I think we are going to see a change in how the world perceives it. And then I think they are going to be waiting until he leaves office, just like, Putin waited until Biden got in. But what Trump wants to do is ensure that America still appears safe. Under Biden, we didn't look that safe. We didn't look that strong. I mean, look at what happened with our border. We're being told by Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley that the Biden-Harris administration placed 11,000 migrant kids with unvetted sponsors who were not the child's parent or legal guardian and did not conduct home studies for over 80,000 migrant children under the age of 12. So one is they let these kids in, and then two, they didn't supervise them. I remember seeing an ad in California saying, we need foster homes. Please reach out to us if you could volunteer. Did anybody ensure that there were no predators, pedophiles? They weren't going to be abused, neglected? So Chuck Grassley said, my oversight continues to expose disturbing evidence that the Biden-Harris administration turned a blind eye to tens of thousands of kids who needed proper supervision and care. It's appalling to prioritize speed and optics over the safety and well-being of children. Grassley says, I appreciate the Trump administration efforts to undo the damage caused by the last administration's failed border policies, and I'll continue my oversight of the issue and ensure abuse like this never happens again. So we definitely let our guard down, and we didn't help the individuals that we thought we were even going to help, or that Biden and Harris, acted like, well, we are helping. We're letting these migrants come in. Okay, well, did they assimilate? Did they learn the language? Did they become citizens? Did they get jobs? Were they attacked or trafficked on the way here? It was very unsafe. So my recommendation is whoever is our president or whoever are our public officials to understand that doing something just for politics will boomerang if you do not protect your constituents, if you do not show strength, if you do not defend the American people. And as we're going to see, throughout this month, what's happening from a crime standpoint, if we don't keep our citizens safe, you don't have a country. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away. Everyone, Dr. Daliah here. As you know, blood banks across the country have declared critically low supplies. In response to this, governors have united for National Blood Donation Week. September 1st through the 7th is National Blood Donation Week, with September 4th National Blood Donation Day. And we are hoping this encourages millions of Americans to donate blood. When crisis strikes, the blood needs to be in the hospitals ready to go. But remember, the units need to be processed days before. And thousands of units of blood are already being used by hospitals on a regular daily basis. So blood supplies need to be prepared and delivered year-round. If you can't donate blood, don't worry. Please host a drive or even spread the word. It all saves lives. You could sign up to donate blood or host a drive at drdaliah.com. Follow the link to National Blood Donation Week. That's drdaliah.com. Remember, 1 pint of blood could save 3 lives. Imagine what the whole country could do.